Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, today we are diving deep into a real medical mystery, the shocking biochemical truth about your gallbladder. For decades, right, we've been told to avoid fat like the plague to protect this little organ. But what if that advice is completely backward? What if those low-fat diets are actually causing the problem? We are going to break down the real science of gallstones today, and honestly, it is going to completely change how you view your digestion. So let's kick things off with a massive number, 700,000. That is roughly the number of gallbladder removals happening every single year in the United States alone. I mean, it is literally one of the most common elective surgeries out there. But a volume that high, it really forces us to pause and ask a critical question about human anatomy. And that question is the gallbladder really just dispensable? Like, is it just a spare part we can safely toss away like an appendix? Well, here is a massive reality check. A significant number of patients who get their gallbladders removed actually continue experiencing the exact same gastrointestinal symptoms. Sometimes it's even worse than before they had surgery. So clearly, this isn't just some useless pouch. Actually, it is incredibly vital. Your gallbladder stores and concentrates bile to do some pretty heavy lifting for your body. When you eat fat, your body sends out a hormone called cholecystokinin. Think of it as a VIP messenger that tells your gallbladder, hey, squeeze out a super concentrated shot of bile. That bile emulsifies the fat so your enzymes can actually digest it. It's literally the only way you can extract fat-soluble vitamins like A, D, E, and K, plus those super important omega-3s. Take away the gallbladder and bile just kind of constantly leaks into your intestine. The result? Total chaotic digestion and fat malabsorption. And that brings us to the absolute biggest myth in modern medicine. For years, we've been told that eating a high-fat diet causes gallstones. But the biochemical reality? It completely shatters that idea. Dietary fat is a totally false suspect here. The true culprits? Insulin resistance and refined carbohydrates. So, to really wrap our heads around why this happens, we need to pop the hood and look at the actual biochemical mechanism. I mean, a gallstone doesn't just magically appear because you ate a piece of cheese, right? It happens when the chemical makeup of your bile goes completely out of whack. Let's walk through how this builds step by step in a cascade. Step 1. You get a bile salt deficiency. Normally, your bile acts like a biological dish soap, keeping cholesterol dissolved in a liquid state using bile salts. But if you don't have enough bile salts to handle the cholesterol, step 2 happens. The cholesterol literally precipitates out of the solution and crystallizes. Step 3, those little microcrystals mix with a sticky protein called mucin, creating this thick, viscous, biliary sludge. And finally, step 4, that sludge hardens into those fully crystallized gallstones we hear so much about. Now, here is a fascinating, honestly kind of sneaky detail. Long before a rock-hard stone even forms, that thick, biliary sludge is already wreaking havoc. It clogs up your tiny ducts, jacking up the pressure inside your biliary system, and guess what? This often creates referred pain, like a dull ache in your right shoulder or right between your shoulder blades. So many times, doctors just brush this off as a pulled muscle, and standard MRIs might completely miss it because it hasn't turned into a calcified stone yet. Okay, so if eating fat isn't the villain creating this sludge, we've got to point the finger at the real bad guys, sugars and starches. The epidemiological link between type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance, and gallstones is absolutely massive. It's not the fat, it is the refined carbs doing the damage. Let's look at how they actually pull off this sabotage. It's basically a dual threat, a totally brutal double-edged sword. When you eat a ton of refined carbs, it actively upregulates a liver enzyme that just cranks out excess cholesterol, dumping it straight into your bile. But wait, it gets worse. At the exact same time, elevated insulin steps on the brakes and actively suppresses the synthesis of bile salts. So think about that. You're getting way more cholesterol, but way less of the bile salts you actually need to dissolve it. It is the literal perfect storm for a gallstone. And this is exactly why avoiding fat makes the whole situation so much worse. A low-fat diet literally forces your bile to stagnate. Why? Because dietary fat entering your system is the exact physiological trigger your gallbladder needs to contract and empty itself. If you're not eating fat, your gallbladder is just sitting there doing nothing. It is a classic use it or lose it scenario. The bile stagnates, the salts don't recycle, and those cholesterol crystals have all the time in the world to turn into sludge. Now, it's not just diet. There are a few other hidden accomplices in this stagnation game. Take low stomach acid, for example. If you have that, you don't even trigger the hormones needed to make the gallbladder squeeze. Then there's excess estrogen, whether that's from pregnancy, birth control, or hormone therapy, which actively pumps more cholesterol into your bile while slowing down movement. Even an underactive thyroid can reduce the smooth muscle motility of your entire biliary tract. But hey, don't worry, it's not all doom and gloom. We don't have to just sit around waiting for our gallbladders to fail. We can actually empower ourselves to restore natural function. And it starts with feeding your liver and gallbladder the exact micronutrients they are literally starving for. These 4 nutrients are the absolute heavy lifters. First, vitamin C. You absolutely need it because it's the cofactor that converts cholesterol into bile acids. Next is choline, which you can get from things like egg yolks. It's the primary phospholipid that keeps everything nicely emulsified. Then, magnesium. That's crucial for keeping those biliary ducts relaxed and functioning smoothly. And finally, surprise, your morning coffee is actually a good thing here, as it stimulates the release of cholecystokinin, which gives your gallbladder that healthy squeeze. Okay, so once you've got those nutrients dialed in, and you've kicked the refined carbs to the curb, it's time to bring in the heavy hitters for natural restoration. Especially if you've already got some sludge built up, you might need a bit of a jump start to get things flowing again. Enter TUDCA. Honestly, this stuff is a total game changer. TUDCA is a highly water-soluble bile acid that is clinically proven to quite literally dissolve that dangerous cholesterol sludge. If you've got stones under 10 millimeters and your gallbladder is still working, TUDCA acts like a natural drain cleaner for your biliary system, safely dissolving stones over time while also protecting your liver cells. It's amazing. And along with eating healthy fats again to trigger those natural contractions, you might also consider purified ox bile salts. These are super easy to find over the counter, and they instantly support your fat digesting when your own body just isn't making enough bile. If your liver is struggling, or hey, if you've already had your gallbladder removed, taking some exogenous bile, meaning from an outside source, can be an absolute lifesaver for absorbing your vitamins. But listen up, because this is the golden rule you absolutely cannot forget. You must always take these purified bile salts after your meals, never ever before. Why? Well, bile salts are highly alkaline. If you drop them into an empty stomach, they're going to neutralize your stomach acid. And remember what we just talked about? You need that strong stomach acid to trigger the hormonal chain reaction that makes your whole digestive system work. So, rule of thumb, take them after you eat. So, to wrap this all up, our source material hits the nail on the head with this concept. Gallstone formation isn't fundamentally about eating too much fat. It is entirely a consequence of bile salt insufficiency. The root cause is high carbs, high insulin, and nutrient deficiencies that strip your bile of its natural dissolving power. Which leaves us with one final, incredibly important question for you to think about. Are you feeding your gallbladder what it actually needs to flow? Or are your daily habits starving it of fat and forcing it to stagnate? It is time we stop treating this amazing little organ like a dispensable spare part. Thanks so much for hanging out with me for this explainer, and I will catch you in the next one.